These are the problems for the warm-ups for Monday in preparation for the 6th test of quarter 2. And taking a look at the first problem, it says that we're to find, or this graph shows the time and distance Jim rode his bike during his training, and he plans on entering a 54-mile race. If Jim rides the same rate, at the same rate he rode during the training, how long will it take him to finish the race? And so they give us this graph here, and this information here is important. The 2 represents the x component of this ordered pair, and the x component is time. So 2 hours to ride 36 miles. So 36 represents the y component of this ordered pair, and 36 is the number on the y-axis at which this point is at. So I'm going to write that as a ratio. So we have 2 hours, and that is for 36 miles. Since I'm going to write a proportion, I need to make sure that the ratio that I end up setting up here is equivalent, which means I need hours on top and miles on the bottom. So let's go to the information we have. It says that he plans on entering a 54-mile race. So 54 miles would have to go on the bottom of the fraction because that's where I put miles. And it asks for how long will it take. Well, how long takes is dealing with time, so we're going to put x hours. So now we're ready to solve. So to solve this, all I'm going to do is cross multiply. But before I do that, if I can reduce the fraction, it might make it easier. So I see I could take out a 2 from both of these numbers. And so the 36 is going to change to an 18, the 2 to a 1. Now I'll go ahead and cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply the 1 and the 54 to make that 54. And over on this side, 18 and the x. So that makes 18x. And then I can go ahead and solve for x. So I'm going to just divide by 18. And 18 does go into 54 evenly 3 times. So 3 is the value of x. So that would be 3 hours. Well, the next problem talks about a sculpture that is of King Kong made of popcorn, and it's 13 feet tall and 8 7/500 feet wide. They want to know how many inches wide the sculpture is. Well, it's 8.75 feet wide, so we need to convert feet to inches. So we need to know this conversion factor. 1 foot equals 12 inches. And so once we have that, we're going to write that as a ratio. And I'm going to write it this way, 1 foot over 12 inches. And it doesn't matter, I could have done 12 inches over 1 foot. I just have to be consistent when I write this next ratio. So I need feet on top and inches on the bottom. Well, I know that it is 8 7/500 feet wide. I want to find out how many inches that is. So that's going to be x inches. So I'm ready to go ahead and solve. So no reducing here, so I'm going to just cross multiply. 1 times x is x. On this side, I need to multiply these two numbers. 12 times 8 7/500. So let's go ahead and do that. 8 7/500 and 12 multiply. So this makes 10. 14 and 1 make 15. Carry a 1. 16 and 1 make 17. Add a 0 and multiply. So we've got 5, 7, and 8. So we go ahead and add these numbers together. That makes 10. 15. Carry a 1. Makes 10. Move the decimal 2 spaces to the right or to the left, and because there's 2 numbers after the decimal here, and so that makes 105 inches. Well, the next problem deals with similar figures. It asks us to tell whether the figures are similar. Now there's 2 things we're looking for. First of all, angles. So compare the 8 angles. 80, 80, 65, 65. 125, 125, 90, 90. All the angles are the same. So that's the first thing we need to look for. Now we look at corresponding sides. So 10 is between 80 and 65. 15 is also between 80 and 65. So let's write a ratio of these. Now this reduces down to 2/3. So if I take out a 5 from each of these, this makes 2/3. So that means all of the ratios need to equal 2/3. So let's check the next one. So we did 10 and 15, so let's do 4 and 6. So they're both between the same angles, 65 and 125, 65 and 125. So 4 over 6, well, when I take out the common factor of 2, that makes 2/3. So that works. So we've got to try them all now. So 8 and 12 is the next one. 8 and 12, I take out a common factor of 4, and that makes 2 over 3. Okay, last one. So 6 and 9. So 6 over 9, I take out the common factor of 3, and that makes 2 over 3. So they all have the same ratio. The sides are proportional. So what we'll say is MPON is similar, and there's my similar sign, to QTSR, and the reason is because all corresponding angles are equal. So all corresponding angles are equal, and all corresponding sides are proportional. That means each of the ratios that I made up here, 10/15, 4/6, 8/12, and 6/9, all reduce to the same fraction. So the next one asks us we've got some similar figures, we need to find the unknown length. So let's start with what we're looking for, this one right here, x. Now when I do this, I have to look at the letters that make up the points. And so I see that x is between E and D. So here it is, D and E. That means that it corresponds to AB, so they have them in the same order. So AB correspond to DE, so AB is 7.5. So don't just look at the figure, look at the letters that represent the points and try to get them in the same spot. Now I'm going to use 2. So 2 is DF. So here's D and F. So that corresponds to A and C. So AC is 3. And so now I'm ready to cross multiply. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the 3 and the x, makes 3x. And then 7.5 times 2 is going to end up giving me 15. So again, 2 times by 7 and 5/10, I can write that out. Makes 10. This makes 14 and 1 make 15, and move the decimal. So that's how that works. Then I divide by 3, and I end up with x equals 5. So 5 meters is the length of that unknown side. Next one talks about the scale of a map is 1.5 inches equals 60 miles. So it's kind of like the unit conversion factor we did over here, except this is a scale of a map. So 1.5 inches is to 60 miles. So now when I set up my next ratio, it needs to be in the same order. We need inches on top and miles on the bottom. And so when I look at it, it says the distance between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh is 7.5 inches. That needs to go on top. They're asking what is the actual distance between the two cities. So how many miles is it apart? All right, so we're ready to cross multiply. Now if you didn't see the reducing that goes on here, go ahead and just cross multiply. So 1.5x and then 60 times by 7.5. So let's do that off to the side here. 7.5 times by 60. Now 0 times a number doesn't change anything, so I'm going to just add the 0 and then multiply the 6 and the 5. Makes 30. That's 42, and 3 make 45. Move the decimal over one space, that makes 450. So now I'm ready to divide. Now when I divide, I need to move that decimal point over, add the 0. So really I'm doing 15 into 4,500. Well, 15 goes into 45 3 times evenly, and just carry up those 2 zeros, and that's it. So 300 miles is our answer. Last one here, euros are a currency in Europe. On one day in November, you could exchange $3 for about 2.5 euros. So let's write that out as a ratio. $3 for 2.5 EU for euros. And now when we set up the next one, we need to set it up the same way. Dollars per EU, per euro. So how many dollars, don't know, so we'll put an X there, would you have needed to get 6 euros? So 6 euros. Now we go ahead and cross multiply. So I don't see any reducing here, so I'm just going to multiply these numbers. So 3 times 6 makes 18, and then 2.5 times by x. And so now we're ready to divide. So I'll divide by 2 and 5/10 on both sides. So the decimal moves over, add the 0. So now 25 into 180. Let's see how many times. Well, I know 7 times 25 makes 175. I know that because of quarters. See, there's 4 quarters in a dollar, and then 3 quarters make 75 cents. So that's 3 and 4 makes 7. So that leaves us with 5. Now we're at the end of the number, so I have to add a decimal point, bring the 0 down, and 25 into 50 goes 2 times evenly. And so that makes 50. And so there our answer would be $7. X would be $7.20. So those are some of the problems that you're going to see on the test. Very similar problems each day. And we'll try some more tomorrow. Good luck.